Love that music, and you know what that music is. It's time for the Full Count Major League Baseball show powered by SportsMemo.com, and I am John Ryan, your host. And I'm pleased to have my Thursday panel of guests, the experts of the experts, Jesse Schule, a wide-awake gentleman from the West Coast. It's 3 o'clock my time, another hour, and it gets closer to thinking that tomorrow's Friday and beverage time. And then we have Pauly joining us as well from SportsMemo.com. Let's start with Eric. I want to just know how things are going for you, and then anything special at SportsMemo.com you want to tell us all about?
Yeah, of course. So right now I'm in the midst of a 6-3 run over the last 7 days. I cashed a 4% play for my clients yesterday. I have a 3-pack of plays today. I'm actually going to be giving away one of those shows with one of those bets on the show, which is a 4% play. So I'm excited for that. But been running a little bit hot lately. Looking to continue that streak, and I'm excited for today's show.
Cool. Jesse Schule, you always got something going on that's pretty hot here. You've been running hot for about the last 2 months. What's happening tonight?
How about an underdog game of the year?
Oh, my goodness.
Major League Baseball. And that's testing a 9-1 last 10 star play run.
That, see, those, I would buy that. But you're going to tell me what it is after the show because I'm the host. But that's a good pick, guys and gals. You should definitely take advantage of both of these guys. But when you see one of us put up a dog in the money line sports of hockey or Major League Baseball, that's where you make your bang for the buck. And speaking of dogs, we're going to go to the first game here. By the way, I lost a 5% max bet on the NBA last night, and I think poor Dr. Chuck said, but John, that's no big deal. You're still hitting 71%. And I literally had a few expletives that people would be surprised if they only know me from this show that I'm capable of even uttering. But I'm going to have to send him a note and apologize for, or at least return his face. That's what I plan on doing. But I was feeling pretty good last night with the Warriors 82-81. But we're here to talk about the New York Yankees and the Minnesota Twins. And this is a matchup that on paper, gentlemen, looks like it's just a complete mismatch. I'm not going to get into the details of their records, but they are division leaders. The Minnesota Twins lead the AL Central. The Yankees lead the AL East. And the Yankees just seem to be beating everybody and beating them into submission before a 3-game series even ends. But Cortez got lit up last night for the first time this year, allowing a season-high 4 earned runs. Some teams, like the Oakland A's, give up that in 2 innings with their starters. So that's still pretty impressive by Cortez, but the final score was 8-1. And this is a rubber match. Minnesota has Dylan Bundy on the hill going up against some guy named Garrett Cole, who claims to be the ace of the Yankees. And I say that kiddingly because he is. He is a stud. The numbers speak for themselves. He's on the road where he's pitched well. And it looks just like what the hell, the Yankees are going to win this. But let's start with Jesse Schule and see what he thinks.
Well, John, first off, I should congratulate you on having the Twins yesterday. I believe you did tell me prior to the game that you had a stat that favored Minnesota. And I was on the opposite side. My best bet on the show yesterday was on the Yankees. And the reason I gave was that while they were a favorite, the price of minus 185, which was the going rate, and as low as minus 170 at some books, was actually lower than it should be, given the differential in win-loss records between the two teams. Given the fact that Cortez hadn't been touched on the season, the Yankees had won 8 of his 10 starts. The Yankees have won 73% of their games up until yesterday. So, less than 2-1 is a favorable price to back the Yankees these days. However, the price is back up to 220 today, and that's not a favorable price to back the Yankees. I do have a best bet on this game that's going to come on later on, so I don't want to get too much into the particulars of that best bet, but I will say that Cole 5-1, 2.78 ERA against Dylan Bundy, who's given up 10 runs on 17 hits in 8 1/3 innings pitched in his last 2 starts. Minnesota losing 8 of their last 12 as an underdog. So you can see why the price is minus 220, and I'll keep you in suspense until the best bet round on what my play will be for this game.
I love it. I'm on suspense already. I'm on the edge of my seat. Let's move over to Eric Pauly and see what he's got, whether it's the Yankees or the Twins in this rubber matchup, a 3-game series.
Yeah, so I'm in the same exact boat as Jesse. I actually have a 4% client play that I gave out today on this game, and I will be giving it out to everybody as my best bet later on the show. When Jesse, Schule, and I are on the same side of the game since we started doing this show together about a month ago, we have a very ridiculous, I think around like a 12-2 run or something like that. So Jesse and I get along. For the most part, very, very good things happen. But taking a look at these two teams, the Yankees 7-3 in the last 10 games. They're obviously, one of the best teams, if not the best team in baseball right now. Twins are 4-6, leading the AL Central. But over this last 4-6 in the last 10 games, but over those last 10 games, they have a team ERA of 5.29. And Dylan Bundy coming in is probably not going to help that. It's probably going to be worse for them. So taking a look at Bundy, the Twins have lost his last 6 starts after winning his first 3 of the season. He's a 5.57 ERA, a 1.45 whip, and a 4.62 fielding independent of pitching on the season. But an angle that I found that I guess I'm giving a little bit of a spoiler, but I'll give you the full pick, is that just Dylan Bundy, when facing other teams in the AL East, which he's very familiar with since he spent most of his career actually in Baltimore, besides for his second start of the season where they pitched against the Red Sox, and this is before the Red Sox, of course, found their stride, he is allowed against the Blue Jays and the Orioles and the Rays 21 runs and 26 hits over just 12 innings in those 3 games. So AL East, teams mash against him. And the Yankees are the best lineup of them all. They're the second best OPS in baseball. They should tee off early and often against Mr. Bundy. And, of course, Garrett Cole has really been on fire. He's been striking out a ton of batters recently. He's facing a solid lineup, of course, so it might be a little bit more difficult for him. But I think Mr. Bundy is going to be on the hot seat in this game.
I like the breakdown, Eric. I do. Garrett Cole, launch angle average 9.8, and that means that he's keeping the ball down, and his spin rates are up there among the elite, and his slider, I think, is his best pitch. He throws 97-mile-an-hour fastball, but I think the slider is the pitch that puts the fear of baseball gods in batters' minds when they see that thing coming, and they're topping it. And the launch angle clearly shows his ground ball fly ball ratio is outstanding. So, again, it looks like the Yankees are going to just slam dunk this and win the series. But my best bet for the show is at the end, too. So I'm not going to give it away. Let's move over to the next game, and that is the Orioles visiting the Kansas City Royals. As you can see, these two teams are struggling, but nobody is struggling like the Los Angeles Angels. But seriously, the Kansas City Royals won a game, but they have lost 31 of their last 38 games by more than 2 points. That's their run line record. So if you're able to predict when they're going to lose, which is basically all the time, betting the run line is probably the way to go. However, Baltimore is not that good a team, so we're not dealing with a real big favorite here. In fact, it's basically a pick'em game. Kansas City is minus 103. And this is a game where I initially would think, why would I want to bet this? But there is actually a pretty powerful betting system on this one. I'll mention after you guys do the breakdown. I want to see who you're picking first. Let's start with Eric Pauly on this matchup.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, 2 teams that are on the lesser end of the MLB. The Orioles are actually putting together some pretty good games. The Royals, on the other hand, they're 2-8 in their last 10 with a 6.117 ERA. And over the last 10 games, they've been outscored by 32 runs. They were able to steal a game in the Orioles. This was a 4-game series. The O's are up 2-1, and the Royals did steal one. But where I'm looking at this matchup is you have 2 starting pitchers in Jordan Lyles and Chris Bubik who allow a ton of runs, a ton of base runners, have very high ERAs, very high fielding independent pitchings, and very high whips. But you're also looking at 2 of the worst batting teams in the MLB. These teams' lineups are very, very inconsistent and are honestly downright mediocre and downright bad. So the Jordan Lyles is 3-4 in the season. The team is 4-7 when he starts. He actually pitched against the Royals on May 8th and went 7.1 innings, allowing just 4 runs on 7 hits in the loss, which is it's a very good start for his standards. But going back to the really how abysmal these lineups have been, The Royals have a 641 OPS at home and a 663 OPS against right-handed pitching this season, which are both in the bottom third of the league. And the Orioles have a 639 OPS against lefties and a 656 OPS on the road. Again, both in the bottom third of the league, closer to the 30 mark. I think that's 24th and 25th, respectively. The total set at 9.5 runs because both of these pitchers are, not the best. However, I'm going under that total for this game, just considering how bad these offenses are.
I have a question for you. Do you think Bobby Witt Jr., who's making headline news almost every single day for the Kansas City Royals, and that's probably the only bright light on that team, unfortunately, and all due respect to the fans, do you think he presents a problem for the Orioles to win this game? Do they have to pitch around him, for example?
So Bobby Witt Jr. is absolutely fantastic. I was able to snag him in my fantasy draft this year. He started off a little bit slow, but I stuck with him. I wasn't letting him hit the waiver wire, and it's rewarded me so far. He's really a five-tool player. He's fantastic in the field, steals a lot of bases, gets a lot of hits. As we know in the sport of baseball, there's very, very rare instances where one singular player can really take a team over the edge, especially if that player is a batter. So while I can certainly see him putting together at least a hit or two tonight, it's very hard to kind of, say that one singular batter is going to wreak havoc on a singular team. Of course, it happens. Tonight could be a night where Witt is doing very well, but I wouldn't go as far as to say as he single-handedly can keep the Royals into this game, but it is, of course, possible.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is a 9-man team, and everybody needs to contribute. Jesse Schule, tell us which ugly there's only one team that can be a dog. They're both favored on the money line, but which ugly barking dog do you see as a chance to win this game?
Well, I can't tell you that, John, because I have a premium pick on this game. But I can tell you in this battle of the bottom feeders between two of the worst teams in baseball, I do have a prop bet for you. I mean, the Orioles are last place in the AL East. The Royals are the worst team in baseball. And this is hardly shaping up to be a pitcher's duel. Originally scheduled was Bruce Zimmerman, who has been roughed up, I guess, so badly that they don't want to throw him out there anymore. And you look at Jordan Lyles, and he's given up 9 hits in each of his last 2 appearances. And he's not doing great. The Orioles are losing games when they send him out there. And you look at Chris Bubick with a ERA over 9. He's given up 24 hits in 18 1/3 innings of work this year. The Royals did manage to get the bats going against the Blue Jays yesterday. I would sort of look at the over here, but I don't trust either of these teams offensively to actually cash in the base runners. I think the bases are going to get worn out today with guys getting on base, but whether they can actually cash them in, I'm not certain of that. So the prop bet I'm looking at is over 18.5 total hits combined for the game.
Well, I can get you to do the over. You know why? Because I have a betting system that supports the over of these two juggernaut teams at the AAA level, at least. You're going to bet over an American League home team. We got that one already nailed down. Facing a guest starting a pitcher, as Eric said, that has a terrible ERA between 4.25 and 4.75 on the season, and is facing a guest like the Orioles, who are averaging 0.75 or more errors per game, which is horrid. Absolutely horrid. The over hit 64% over the last 5 years. I'm playing. I'm going to do this with pizza money, maybe a 1%er, but I like the over 9.5 runs right now. I see at DraftKings. Good stuff. Let's move on to the third and final game, which is probably my favorite one of the 3, because we find the Los Angeles Angels on a horrific. I don't know where this even. What's the word that is worse than horrific? I know abhor, ABHOR, means that's the biggest powerful hate word you can say. But when it's really ugly and bad, I just don't know what the word is. But they are 14-game losing streak after being 23-11. They had a really, really good coach in John Madden fired. Ohtani's pitching tonight. You got a guy named Mike Trout who's not playing because of injury, but one guy does not make a team. I think the losing streak ends tonight. I really do. I think the Angels finally get it together. They're going against Nick Pivetta, who I think is vulnerable against this type of lineup. That is a very good offensive lineup. It's just, this is baseball, folks. And just like the A's in 2002, when they won the first 14 games, ironically, I started fading them. And I'll never forget it because it's one of the best lessons I learned in my first decade of being a pro bettor. And you just don't catch that falling knife, as Steve Merrill likes to say. And I like to say, too, because it's fun to say. In other words, if a team is on a streak, you don't screw with it unless you have a reason to do that. I have a betting system that supports that. And I'll mention that at the end of the breakdowns here with Jesse Schule and Eric. So let's start with Jesse Schule, see what he thinks about my idea that the losing streak comes to a screeching halt against the Red Sox team that I've liked since about the age of 4. And they were still called the Red Sox then, too. What do you think, Jesse?
Well, John, my thoughts are that I could not bring myself to bet on the Angels riding a 14-game losing streak, coming in as a favorite despite losing 14 straight. And you look at the pitching matchup, and that says it all. And you probably remember me on this show since the beginning of the year. A very unpopular opinion I have that it is Ohtani is a little bit overhyped. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's great, of course. He won the MVP last year, but since late last year, I've been saying the hype is just too much. And I look at this game and I look at Pivetta and Ohtani, and Pivetta has a better win-loss record, a better ERA, a better WHIP, a better opponent batting average. He's given up fewer home runs in fewer innings, and he goes deeper into ball games. What other metric do you want to look at? All the numbers say Pivetta is putting his team in a better chance to win than Ohtani is, but Ohtani's got the bigger name. He's got an MVP trophy. And do you want to pay a premium for that? I know I don't. I know this is an unpopular opinion. I've had unpopular opinions before, but it's all the more rewarding when you're proven right. And I think that's coming to fruition here with Ohtani. He's not performing that well as a pitcher so far this season, and therefore I could not play the Angels here as a favorite.
Good stuff, Jesse. You're making me draw some caution to back in the Angels so far. Let's see what Eric Pauly has to say about this intriguing matchup between Boston on a 7-game win streak, looking for their 8th in a row, still 10.5 games behind the Yankees in the division, playing well against a team that has not found a way to win and coming off a 1-0 loss.
Yeah, so I love how Jesse put this out there. I think we were on the show last week where he said very similar sentiments, and I went to back up Ohtani, and what happened? He got a little roughed up against the Yankees in that start. So we'll see, Jesse. We'll see if it gets proven right over time. Ohtani has the fielding independent pitching on his side, so he has a 3.99 ERA, but his FIP is 3.35, which is an indicator that potentially he is pitching better than his ERA stats are showing. But I do agree it's very hard to make the justification now because look at the numbers. He is getting roughed up and clearly is not throwing the ball as well as he has in the past. But I do not think it's like a thing that will continue so far. I do think his talent is otherworldly and that he will come back around on the mound. But it's going to be tough for him to do that tonight. He's facing an immensely hot Red Sox lineup that is 8-2 in their last 10 games. The Angels, of course, as we all know, are on this gigantic losing streak. But what's really alarming during the streak is the fact that they're batting as a team a 1.99 batting average, and their team ERA is a 5.93. So it's not like they're coming into games. And I lost last night 1-0, and are just being outclassed and maybe just one singular inning here or there. They're flat out bad right now. They're playing really bad baseball. Of course, it's reflected in the win-loss record, and there's no other reason for it besides that they're not hitting and their pitchers are not making pitches. No Mike Trout now. No Rendon, of course, been on the IL for a while. It's going to be very hard for him to bounce back. I agree that Pivetta looks really, really great this season. His stats definitely back that up. Over the course of the season, the Angels have a 720 OPS against righties and a 734 OPS at home. So they could potentially try to get the ball rolling, even though, as we, of course, have seen, they're not having a really great time right now. Ohtani pitched against the Red Sox at Fenway on May 5th and had one of his best starts, if not his best start of the season. We allowed no runs on just 6 hits through 7 innings with 11 strikeouts. Ohtani's strikeout numbers are very impressive this season. That's one thing that he does well, but that also prevents him from getting deep into games like Jesse mentioned. So for this game, with even though how hot the Red Sox are, I expect Ohtani to have a bounce back start. I'm looking at the under for this game. I do not have a, I do have a separate premium play on this game and the Orioles game that's included in the package. And of course, we'll go into the best bets later. But a free lean at a 1% that I would look at is under 8 runs for this matchup.
It's good stuff. Now I'm going to give you 2 betting systems. And I was thinking over actually as part of the bounce back after a 1-0 debacle last night, but maybe that's a little bit too bold. But in the matchup I'm looking at here, it's the side supporting the Angels, and it's pretty simple. You're going to bet on any team, regardless of a 14-game losing streak or not, after allowing 1 or fewer runs in their previous game, going up against an opponent like Boston that has won 2 straight games by 1 run each. 29-10 is that combination of 2 parameters. 74%, it's made 21 units, which means that the $100 bettor has made 2,100 spanning the last 5 seasons. That supports the Angels. And then betting against a road team after 2 consecutive games without a homer, which the Red Sox have done, and have a hot starting pitcher with a whip of no more than 1.000 over his last 5 starts, which Nick Pivetta does have. That plays against Boston, 66-32 record, 65% winners back in the Angels. I hate to go against my friends here with Eric and Jesse, but I'm going to – you guys can blast me tomorrow or even later tonight if they lose 10-0, but my instincts tell me to back the Angels, and I could be dead wrong. So now we're going to move over to the fun part of our show, and that's the best bet segment of our show. I'm going to be a nice host and let one of you pick to go first, because I know one of my best bet is going to go against one of you or both of you, but that's fine. I just want to know what I'm up against. Jesse, you want to go?
Yeah, I think it's me and you head-to-head here. I know who you got, I think. So I guess yesterday my best bet was on the Yankees. Didn't work out. Who could have guessed that Cortez was going to pick yesterday to blow his hot string of incredible starts? But it happened. But the Yankees are 18-6 in their last 24, coming off a loss. And I mentioned the same rules apply. This team's won 73% of their games so far. They got a huge pitching matchup in their favor in this game 3 with Cole, who has been even better of late, 3-1 with a 2.66 ERA in his last 6 starts. Of course, I already mentioned Bundy giving up 10 runs on 17 hits in 8 1/3 in his last 2 starts. And Minnesota with some injury problems. I fully expect the Yankees to bounce back. I'm not going to take them on the money line. I'll take them on the run line instead. And we're looking for a big bounce back for New York tonight.
What would it be like if you lost twice in a row to me, though?
It's never happened. So
I know, but I mean, it never happened that the Angels lost 14 in a row either. It's never happened that the Warriors scored 11 points last night in a quarter. Mm-hmm. Let's move over to Eric Pauly and see what he's got on tap for the best bet of the show.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, when Jesse and I are looking at similar angles in the same game, we have had a ton of success over the last couple of months. Again, like I like to say, you would think that we had a conversation about this prior to the show and put our brains together, but I guess it's just simple that great minds think alike. For this match, for my best bet of the show, I'm also focusing on the Yankees Twins. Again, I gave this out as a client play with a package of 2 other plays involved, so definitely take a look at that. But my best play, my play of the day is on the Yankees on the run line for the first 5 innings of this matchup. I got that at -140 earlier this morning. Like Jesse mentioned, the Yankees, of course, have the far superior starting pitcher going on the mound. Garrett Cole's a 2.78 ERA. 0.96 whip and a 2.58 fielding independent of pitching. So he's going back to doing Garrett Cole things after, a little bit of a rocky start of the season. Dylan Bundy, like I mentioned, has had a ton of struggles facing his old division. The AL East knows him well, and they're hitting him like they know him well. Again, besides for that second start of the season, which was very early in the year in Boston, when the Red Sox couldn't find their identity either, he has been absolutely shelved by the Orioles, the Rays, and the Blue Jays. And I think the Yankees are the next AL East team to add to that really horrible, rough time he has against the division. They know his pitching, they know his style, and they're the best lineup of them all that he's faced so far. So I'm going with the Yankees to cover that 0.5 runs on the run line for the first 5 innings tonight.
It's good stuff, Eric. I'm scared to even say what I'm going to do here, but actually I'm going to give out 2 best bets. The first one is actually the Chicago White Sox against the Dodgers, and you'll see why in just a second. But I did want to give a little shout out to Dylan Bundy here. The thing that caught my attention with him is his ground ball, fly ball percentage, 42% ground balls, 25% fastballs. I earlier said that Garrett Cole is among the elite in that category. 45% ground balls, just 3% more, 26% fly balls, which is 1% more than Bundy. So the ratios there are kind of close. Line drive percentage, Garrett Cole, 22.5% of batters facing him hit a line drive. That doesn't mean it's a hit. It could be also an out. Line drive percentage for Dylan Bundy, 24%. Pretty close, right? So, the one thing I don't like about Bundy is the pull percentage because, until they change the rule with the shift, these batters are just going to continue to try to pull the ball and just, nail it. And pull percentage for Dylan Bundy is 46% of batters. But then that also helps the shift a little bit because they know where the ball is going. Pull percentage for Garrett is 38%. And a lot of that's because batters are trying to pull it, but he's throwing 98 miles an hour. They get behind it. It goes up the middle. Or even opposite field with him on the hill. So I don't think there's and I just want to quickly mention spin rates. So Garrett Cole has some of the best spin rates in the business. His slider is 2,573 RPMs on average. That's elite. That's why it breaks late. That's why batters swing over the top. That's why his launch angle is 10 degrees. His cutter's 2,500 changeup is, and a changeup, I want to make this point. You want it around 1,500 RPMs. You want it to be as low as possible because then it's going to what? It's going to drop. And that's the movement that gets batters to hit ground balls because they think it's a fastball or completely miss it. So with Dylan Bundy, his rates are 2,400 on the slider. So he's 170 RPM slower. That's significant, but it's still way above average of the Major League Baseball pitcher. His changeup is only 1,200, and that is arguably his best pitch. He throws a curveball in there to right-handers only. We'll never throw that to a lefty. That's around 2,000, 2,100 RPMs. So the point of the matter is, Garrett Cole is definitely the better pitcher. But I'm not going to throw Dylan Bundy under the bus and say he's going to get shelled tonight. We also have a betting angle of the day. And without further ado, this also supports the play on the Chicago White Sox. You're going to bet on home dogs with a winning record in the month of June, facing an opposition that has outscored their opponents by at least 100 runs in total. Dodgers have outscored their opponents by 112. Yankees, despite losing 8-1 last night, are outscoring their opponents by 101 to date, which is a ton. Takes a complete beatdown of opponents to be in the early part of June and having outscored your opponents by 100 or more runs. I'm going to be tracking this system and producing digital content in written form to track how this goes over the next 2 or 3 months. And we'll see how the system does. I expect it to do very well. And we're getting paid to take the Twins here. We are getting paid a ton. You know why? Because the Yankees don't lose. The public doesn't think they're ever going to lose. And they got Cole in the hill. What could be easier? And I'm just saying that over time, Eric, with all due respect, Jesse, they might win tonight 12-0. I wouldn't be surprised. But I know by following this system over the course of the month and the rest of the season, I might just have enough money to buy a pizza or maybe even the whole restaurant at the end of the season. So I'm on the Twins tonight, plus the 180, and let's see what happens. So that brings us to the end. I'm interested to know before I let you go, though, we have a few seconds here. What did you think of my pick? Absolutely disgusting that I would say it the way I did with such arrogance, or did you like the analytics?
I don't mind the analytics. I guess my thought on analytics is this. Analytics is one of several things I'll use, and if it lines up with all the other tools in the toolbox, I'll run with it, and I'll use it as a reinforcement to the pick. But I don't like to go solely on analytics, especially if it conflicts with some more traditional, just straight up. Bundy's been rocked the last few starts. Cole's been really hot. It's hard for me to believe that that's gonna. Yeah, even though I know that's not always reliable. I need more than just a trend or an analytics angle to go against my nature and what's just more natural.
Well, before Eric answers, and Jesse, you can chime in too, and this will be the last question, I promise. Remember when Justin Verlander went to Seattle with his 1.02 ERA or whatever the heck it was, and he got shelled? It happens, right? So we have a Dylan Bundy who's underperforming. We have Garrett Cole who's Cy Young times 12. Are you worried even a little bit that we could have the progression of Bundy and the regression of Cole tonight, even a little bit?
Yeah, so I could chime in there. So I love the points that you're making because, like you mentioned, in terms of how the market views the Yankees, you're 100% correct. The general betting public sees Garrett Cole on the hill, sees the New York Yankees that are clearly the best team in baseball at the moment, if not 1-2. Playing a lesser team, even though the Twins are a very solid team, they're going to default to put their money on the Yankees. But I also very much so agree with Jesse that in certain things come down to more than just what a trend or analytics are kind of claiming. I think that it is very possible. Like, again, we saw with Nestor Cortez last night that they regressed toward the mean, and that Dylan Bundy, you mentioned some really good things about his spin rates and how he's improving, that he could certainly progress. I just do, when it comes to this particular matchup, I think the fact that there's the familiarity between the Bundy and the Yankees from his time in Baltimore, where he spent most of his career. And I also think that, again, just in betting in general, you're going to need to be contrarian at times because most of the time when people are zigging, you have to zag in order to be profitable in this space. So I appreciate the angle and where you're coming from. I'm not on the full game, so I think this might kind of not apply as much. But I think this is a situation where the Yankees take advantage of a lesser pitcher.
And that may well be the case too, because they're coming off an 8-1 drubbing. So you would think they, probably have a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth.
And we don't have to go as far back as the Verlander situation, since, as Eric mentioned, it was just yesterday that Cortez got blown up and regressed to the mean. But that's all the more reason to think, is that going to happen 2 days in a row? You know what I mean? Like,
great point. It's a great point.
And then trying to pick that spot where a guy like Cole is going to regress, isn't that kind of like trying to catch a falling knife?
Well, it's an exercise in futility. You can't pinpoint it. That's why I was saying that, you take the system and play it over the next month. And like I said, I'm going to have the spreadsheet. I'll be accountable. If it does awful, then it does awful. But this is one that, when I saw the team scoring 100 this early, more than their opponents, it got my attention. And that's why I'm, playing around with it and focused on it, just to try to show the handicapping process. And if we did anything just now, we showed how difficult it is to handicap a game, because there's so many different ways to look at it, and they're all right. There's not a wrong way to handicap it. Not one of our handicaps is wrong. And possibly all of them are right. First 5 Yankees, and all of a sudden we have this dramatic comeback by the Twins with a 3-run bomb in the bottom of the ninth to win it. And Jesse Schule texts.
We know it can happen. We've all seen it happen many times.
That's the part you can't predict. But you're right. It's like trying to pinpoint the top of the market and when that's going to be. You can't do it. It rolls over and it takes time to identify that top, just like in baseball. So that's a great point, Jesse. So that brings us to the end of the show. Our best bets are locked in. And make sure you guys get over to sportsmemo.com and get Eric's package, get Jesse's stuff, and get my stuff. Get it third. But make them your priority tonight, and I'm sure you'll be glad you did. We'll be back again tomorrow. Joe D'Amico, the illustrious, legendary Joe D'Amico, will be the host for the MLB Full Count Show. And remember 2 things until that point. Bet with your head, never over it. And Jesse, what's the rest?
May all the wins be yours.
Awesome.